Hey guys, Jeffries here, and welcome to the 4th episode of Cities in Motion 2. And you can see here there's a nice little bus arriving with some passengers. There's 11 passengers waiting to go on the Navy line as well. So the bus lines are starting to work. However, you remember at the end of the last episode I said about cutting costs because our money is dropping. Yeah, our money is dropping. So what I'm going to do is open up the economy panel. And you can see we're losing 356 odd at the moment. And our biggest expenses are currently going on energy and drivers. But what we can do, ticket prices, the first thing I do with ticket prices is I make everything there. So it's 50, 50p, £1, £1.50, £2.50. And I do that for everything. What I do is I make ticket prices nice and cheap, but at the same time so that I actually get a profit. So that's that done. This one I drop it down to 2. Then I actually have this at 3 and this at 4.50, and the same for this one. I have that 85 and I have that at 1.30. All these others should be nice round numbers. I like to work in round numbers, makes things easier to work out. So yeah, that's all good. So we've got some nice cheap ticket prices, but that's now made that slightly bigger because we're getting less on tickets. So what I do now is I go into the employees panel. Now, wages of the mechanics we tend to keep, or the maintenance personnel as they're called on here, we try to keep as high as possible so that their efficient working time, they work 51 minutes per hour. So that means if a bus is sat in a depot for an hour, 51 minutes is spent fixing the bus up for its next journey. So you can have a bus that's just come off a long trip, say it's on like 10% efficiency. The mechanic can then tinker away on it for the rest of that hour, get it in working order again, so by the time the time comes for it to go out on its next journey, it's pretty much at 100% efficiency again. So that one we want to keep the same. These two wages, however, we can afford to drop them right down. So I go for like, let's say £9. Happiness 70%, that will do. Drivers we also drop down to £7, 74%. That's pretty good. And then we allow overcrowding. Let's bump his wage back up actually a little bit. Keep him a bit happier. So that's 73%. 100% overcrowding. That means that these buses, for example, can seat 16 people. 100% overcrowding, it means they can seat, they can have a capacity of 32 rather than 16, and that will help with rush hour. Other times of the day it might not matter as much, but for rush hour in particular it just means they can store more passengers. And then we're also going to see what that's up to. 335 minus 335, so let's do ticket count. So if we do that for 10, we catch 62% of fare dodgers. And then suddenly we're getting money from penalty fares as well. However, inspectors has gone up. So now it's a case of jiggling these around a little bit until basically we want penalty fares to be higher than inspectors. Nearly. So there you go. We're getting 9 at the moment. And as time goes by and more passengers start using our system, this amount will go up. This amount should stay the same, which means that this amount will go up as well. And that should help us avoid having to take out a loan. Save a little bit of money still. Right, what's the other thing I wanted to do? I think really the only other thing I wanted to look at was the possibility of having these stops for trams as well. So again, you've got the trunk line through the middle here. If I have another divergence that goes up to this section and then joins back again for there, you can see it's manageable. It doesn't look too bad actually the way that works, so that's pretty good. So we can do that again for these ones, and it just increases capacity. But again, like with everything that I've set up on here so far, that is something that can be done at a later date. And then this whole section up here is perfect for metros and monorails, because there's going to be a huge metro station here, and there's going to be a monorail interchange as well. Well, that might be down this side, actually, thinking about it. There's going to be an interchange anyway, that's for sure. And then these hoppy bridges here, there's one here, and there's one here, and there's one here, and then there's this section here. That could actually be a monorail line. I could have a monorail line following that, or replace that with a monorail line. Going back to this, the central hub, we've got 10 passengers waiting for the Navy line, and we've got 16 passengers waiting for the Cobalt line. So normally that would be a Cobalt line bus full, which is fantastic. That's exactly what we want. We want lots of passengers travelling on the line, and one of the reasons that there's so many people waiting to get on the bus now, I believe, it might not be accurate, but I believe it's because, again, if I can get my mouse to work, of ticket prices. If they're dark blue like this, they are really, really good rates. And you can see, I mean, it's double. Let me talk you through this thing first. So obviously we've got bus, trolley, tram, metro, water bus, monorail. This is if you're travelling on a single line. So in this case, let's say you're travelling on the Navy line. If you're getting on at the Navy line, and if you're getting off at the Navy line, that's how much it is. It's a single flat rate of 50p. If you're travelling within zones, which we haven't done yet, but I will also do them in this episode, if you're travelling within a single zone, it's £1. If you're travelling within 2 zones, it's £1.50, and if you're travelling within multiple zones, it's £2.50. That's the same for all of these lines. This at the bottom is if you want to get on the bus here, let's say, if you want to get on the Navy line, and then 2 stops down there's a connection with the tram, and you want to swap onto the tram. You then buy one of these tickets. So it's £2 if you want to go through one zone, £3 if you want to go through 2 zones, and £4.50 if you want to go through all the zones, or more than 2 zones basically. And that's where the money comes from. That's how we can afford to pay for all these niceties. See, this number is starting to drop. We're starting to get more fares, penalty fares as well, which is good because we're getting more people on the system. What we're going to do now is put in zones. So define zones. The way I like to do this is yellow is the default zone. So at the moment this entire city is yellow. If I get up the zone, there you go, it's all yellow. What I like to do is make each of these islands, this one and this one, a separate zone. So let's do zone B for this section, this island. The alternative is you do it like how London's set out, where you've got zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So zone 1 is central London, zone 2 is the next ring out, zone 3, zone 4, I think it goes up to zone, used to go up to zone 6, I think it goes up to zone, I think it's 9 now, and that goes like right up to like London suburbs, sort of Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire, that sort of area. So you can see that's zone B done. This whole island is zone B. We're now going to swap to, let's say, green, and do zone C, which is going to be all of this island, which hasn't actually been built on yet, but once it has, we'll get some more money for doing that. What that means is we can afford to charge passengers more money now because they're travelling between zones, or they will be travelling between zones, which works in our favour because we get more money from that, as I've just said. And they're quite happy to pay that because, again, like London, if you're going from zone 1, let's say, to zone 4, it costs more than if you're going from zone 1 to zone 2. And you can buy those different tickets depending on what journey you want to make. Now, this is where it gets a bit tricky, and this is where I tend to try and split things as evenly as I can, because you can see we've got a huge bulk area here, and then another huge bulk area here, and then a huge one here, and then a massive one there, one behind it, and then we've got the island, and then we've got this area here. What I like to do, half of this is going to be kept yellow, obviously, and the other half is going to be red. But it's a question of which halves are which, and where do you split it. The logical place to split it is down here, but then you end up with a street where one half of it is in one zone and one half of it's in another zone, so you're actually paying cross-zone fares just to go from one end of the street to the other. So ideally you want to keep it outside of these bulk areas, but then you end up with one area bigger than the other. So I think the best way of doing it is... I might just do the split in half strategy actually. So straight line, straight as I can get with this mouse, from that bit there down to here, and then it comes along this way and then up here, and now I'm going to do this slightly unusually, but bear with me. This whole section down here now is going to become red, so I'm going to cover this little area here. Try not to cover land if I can help it, which is what I've just done there because I'm a bit of a klutz. Oh, this mouse, I hate this mouse. I need to get a new mouse. If anyone wants to buy me a new mouse, feel free. You'd be doing me a massive favour. Right, there we go. It's just, I don't know, the light on it's flashing. I don't know what that means, whether it's working or whether it's running out of battery. There's nothing that tells me. I'm just waiting for it to conk out, and then I might replace the battery and see if that makes a difference. Right, now I'm going to do a straight line right up to here like that, and then I'm just going to fill this massive gap in whilst being careful not to go over land. So you can see we're going to go down here, and then we're going to go along this bit, and again at this moment in time it doesn't make that much of a difference. However, as we start expanding, like once the tramway expands, it's going to cross this bridge into this island, and then suddenly you're going between zones, and I can start charging more for that privilege. And likewise, eventually we're going to have bus lines going into this area here, and we're going to have bus lines going into this area here, and then suddenly we can afford to charge a lot more money and get a lot more money. In the meantime though, how are we doing for time? Try and make this the same length as all the others. That's gone up again. That's gone down again. So let's see if I change this to 5 again. Oh, it's just too much. I might turn that back to, what was it on? It was on 3, wasn't it? So what's that difference? That's about 70. Let's call it 70, even though it's not. It's about 60, 65. Turn that down to 2. That's 90 odd. There you go, it's right there, 87. And if I do that, it's 64. So let's do it as 2 for now. We're only catching 37%, but we're making more money doing so. So for now I'm going to keep it like that. And see if that makes any difference whatsoever. Right, last things to do. I mean, the money itself, we're doing well for money. Company value's doing well. Got a lot of infrastructure built. Road-wise, I like this idea of the way it snakes into the depots here, and the way it goes underground, and you don't really notice it. So it just drops down here. Doesn't actually impact the park too much either. Doesn't slow the vehicles down. It goes around the lake like that, so there's no environmental impact. And then it all meets up again and does its little snaky thing here, and then comes out. And apart from this area here, you wouldn't know that that's the route to the depot. And even then, you have to be a real keen eye to follow it all the way around to find out where it's going. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this. One thing I'm a little concerned about, there's that example I was saying about, by the way, in the last episode about buses following each other. The other thing I'm concerned about is there's not many people waiting at these stops at the moment. What time of day is it? 7 in the morning. That might be why. Rush hour will be starting soon though. And the best way to look at what rush hour is doing is to go to, yeah, this road here. See this main avenue bridge? If I drop down a little bit, I used to have a bus line when I first started playing this game that ran all the way down the length of this road, and players of this game will know it turns into a highway which loops round and comes up to this part of the map here. And I thought it was a really good idea. I used the expressways to get the buses going and have stops just periodically down this road. However, during rush hour, let's say there is a car that's coming off this junction here and is waiting at these traffic lights. Seems like a perfectly ordinary thing. The way that the AI in this game is designed, cars in this lane here will be looking to get into this lane in order to turn off. if there's a car queue in here, and then there's a queue that goes all the way up, and if in this lane as well there's a queue that goes all the way up, this car, say the queue spreads back to about here, there'll be a car here that will just stop because it's waiting to get over, and therefore you can end up with a queue all the way back to here, say, just because that one car is waiting to get over. And then eventually when it does, you get about 3 or 4 cars go past, and then the 5th car also wants to get over. Why not just have it so that, you know, you've just gone past this junction, there's another junction coming up, oh, I want to turn off, I'm going to get over there. So that you're already in the right position to come off. Or even at this one, you can come over, so you're not blocking traffic. Because my buses used to take the fast lane when there wasn't a stop, and there'd be, like, you'd have 6 in a row because one got caught in traffic and the other 5 have just caught up to it. And it's ridiculous. I ended up having to buy another 30 buses once just to compensate for the traffic, and it was unbelievably expensive, and I was losing a ton of money. And yet when I first started running the route, I was making a lot of money. And it actually, me opening that bus route, I think, is what caused all the traffic. Because before I opened the bus route, there was no traffic, and as soon as I opened the bus route, suddenly all these cars turned up. And I thought the idea of this game was to get rid of traffic by building transport links, but apparently it just encourages traffic as well. So that was incredibly frustrating. Eventually I vetoed that idea and had the 2 sub-streets, one either side, and put the bus stops down there instead. But even then, those roads started becoming busy. So it just became a nightmare, a logistical nightmare, to the point that my final alternative was to actually build an underground bus lane with every now and then paths, pedestrian paths that came back to surface level. And if you wanted to catch the bus, you'd walk down these paths and there'd be a bus stop one either side, depending on what direction you're going, and then the buses would pick you up from there. This is because I couldn't actually afford metros at that time, so the cheapest way was to build an underground busway, but hopefully I don't have to go through that again. I might still have an underground busway, but we'll see. We're still losing a lot of money. Why are we losing more money than we were before? That's flown up, and that's flown up. Drivers have gone up as well. Let's paid the drivers a little bit less. Let's drop that back down to 7. And let's do this down to, let's say, 8. Bump that back up to 3. So that goes to 58. Put it at 5. Down to minus 15. We might have to raid the bank, guys. I didn't want to do it, but we might have to. At least then we can use the money to build something useful like a tramway. Get a first tramway going. And see if that makes a difference to our funding. I imagine we'll be making profit with the tramway. So it's just a case of waiting and seeing. I quite like this view actually. The graphics on this game are quite something. And the fact that each one of these people has an individual name, an individual, what would you call that, category, and then they all have a destination. Where's it? Target, a destination, and then it shows where they started from, and it also shows their method. So at the moment there's a lot of people walking and driving. And the idea of this game is to get them all onto public transport, which is eventually what is going to happen. But yeah, as I was saying, guys, in the next episode I think we'll be taking out a loan, and then we'll be starting our tramway. Well, I say starting, we'll be completing our tramway. We'll also be purchasing some trams, and we'll be trying to increase our profits again. You can kind of see where this tramway is going to go. It's going to go straight down that way, over the bridge, and then it's going to terminate in a similar way as it's doing at the other end at the moment. And then we'll get the old trams out, and we'll make a ton of money that way. Let's look at the time again. Yep, it's about time to end this episode, guys. So let me just get the camera in a good position. There we go. Time to end the episode. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, be sure to click the subscribe button. If you have subscribed to my channel, thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.